All right, it is transfer portal season across college football, and Kirby Smart got some good news and a little bit of bad news this week. I'm going to be breaking that all down in today's video. Of course, this is not breaking news at all. I'm just going to recap what's happened basically in the last 24, 48 hours and give a breakdown of what you might expect to happen in favor of Georgia, right? So we're talking about guys who may transfer, guys who could transfer to Georgia, and we're going to talk about the needs. Where does Georgia need to go in the transfer portal to upgrade their roster next year? So we're going to jump into all of it, stacked video. So let's start by talking about the recent news, right? So a couple days ago, freshman wide receiver Nitro Tuggle, who's caught 3 passes for 34 yards this year and actually played a decent bit against Texas, just didn't record a catch. He said that he was going to enter the transfer portal, which was not surprising news, but still a little complicated because he's a guy that I think a lot of people expect to play a lot next year. I don't know if he went back and met with Coach Smart or just kind of thought about his options, but yesterday he said, you know what? I'm coming back, right? I'm coming back. I want to be a Dog. I'm going to stay for another year. So, we saw that a couple of times last year. Julian Humphrey said he was going to enter the portal. Then he came back. Daniel Harris said he was going to enter the portal. He came back. Kristen Miller said he was going to enter the portal, or maybe almost did. And then he came back. So a lot of these guys think that there's better opportunities elsewhere. And then some of them, like Nitro Tuggle, said, you know what? I've got a great opportunity to make a lot of plays in Athens next year. I'm going to come back. So that was some good news for Kirby Smart. A little bit of bad news, not really. Jamal Jarrett, a big, massive interior defensive tackle, wasn't playing a ton, or wasn't making an impact for his first 2 years. So he is entering the transfer portal. That's a guy they thought might be able to turn into the next Jordan Davis type, just that massive run stuffing, space eating interior defensive lineman. Thought he might emerge a little bit more this year in his second year. He didn't, and even with guys leaving, I still thought he had an opportunity to maybe have a possible breakout year next year. Warren Brinson is leaving, Nazir Stackhouse, Ty Ingram Dawkins. So there's a lot of opportunity for interior guys to make, plays next year. And I was not surprised, my nose has been itching. Jamal Jarrett and Jordan Hall, who it doesn't really make sense for him to transfer, but he's another guy that I've got an eye on, right? You never really know. So Jamal Jarrett, at the end of the day, he's probably not good enough to play at Georgia. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean it in reality. If you're not playing, chances are, a lot of the times, you're just not good enough to play at Georgia. If you can't earn a starting role within the first 2 years and you don't think you're going to earn one as year 3, you've got guys behind you that, could take your spot. That'd be a real bad look for Jamal Jarrett if some of these guys I'm going to talk about in just a second, right behind him, pass him on the depth chart. So he's saying, you know what? There's no guarantee that I play a lot next year. I'm going to enter the portal, and I don't think it's that big of a loss. So let's talk about needs, right? They do need more interior defensive linemen, right? They have guys leaving, going to the draft, and now Jamal Jarrett is a guy that's, leaving. So got to have some depth there. And they've got some young guys from last year's class. Jordan Thomas, a kid from New Jersey, really good athlete, 300 pounds. Nazir Johnson, another really good athletic kid, that's 300 plus pounds. He was from Dublin. Nnamdi Agboko, another promising interior defensive tackle. He was from North Carolina. Those are 3 guys who were freshmen this year who have the ability to step up and maybe push for some playing time next year. Kristen Miller could be back. He could leave for the draft. I don't think he's going to transfer. Xavier McLeod, I think, should be coming back as well. So there are some guys who have an opportunity to make some plays, but they still need to go to the portal and get someone, whoever. As far as defensive linemen go in the portal, Williams Nwaneri is a former 5-star from Missouri that Georgia was in on as a recruit. He was top 5 player in the country last year. Committed to Missouri because at the time they had, a law where you can earn NIL money in high school and even more if you stay in the state of Missouri. I believe it was something like that. I'm not a lawyer, maybe one day, but it was something along those lines. So he stayed in Missouri, stayed in the state, played for the Tigers because of some monetary advantages that were given to him there. But 1 year, he's like, thanks, boom, peace, I'm out. And listen, if I lived in misery, I'd try to get out as quickly as possible too. If you live out there, I'm sorry, that was a joke. I'm sure it's not as bad as I make it out to be blindly. I've never been there. Doesn't look all that great. I'm moving on. Sorry. But I get why he'd want to go and live elsewhere. Keyshawn Silver is another 5-star in the portal. Went to North Carolina. Georgia offered him as a high school kid, but never really pushed for him. He might end up at Florida. Deshaun Womack, I believe he's in the portal from LSU. Georgia liked him a lot. Haven't heard a lot of noise there, but Jaheim Otis out of Alabama, he's in the portal too. They got to go somewhere. They need some game-changing defensive linemen, and you can't rely on all the young guys and a freshman Elijah Griffin. So they're going to have to improve there. I do think they need another wide receiver, Eric Singleton Jr., kid from Douglasville that has played really, really well for Georgia Tech. He's in the portal. He's taking a visit to Georgia very soon, depending on when you're watching this. He's definitely a guy to know as well. He got 56 passes this year, 754 yards and 3 touchdowns. Against the Dogs, he had 8 catches for 86 yards and 1 touchdown. Josh Crawford could be key there. He was recruited there to Georgia Tech by him. He's now the running back coach at Georgia, so some familiarity. But this is a guy who's already shown he can be really productive at the collegiate level, so he's a guy to keep an eye on. And then we'll see who else enters the portal at wide receiver, but there's definitely an opportunity for a lot of guys to step up at the wideout position for Georgia next year. Could see several freshmen, but I do think it looks, I got like 3 texts that popped up just then. Got to push through, and I think the Dogs need to add some more guys. As I try to focus back, that ADD's hitting me hard today. I think they could go with another tight end. I think they're like their tight end room. I think there's a lot of guys who could still make a lot of plays next year. Oscar Delp, I think, is coming back. Lawson Lucky, and the 2 freshmen, Elias Williams, Ethan Barbour, those guys can make a lot of plays. Jaden Riddell, who's a freshman this year, we've seen him a little bit here in a couple of these blowout games at least, but I think he's going to take on a bigger, significant role next year. But Deuce Robinson is a former 5-star that Georgia, I thought could land at one particular time. He's transferring out of Southern Cal, and I don't think Georgia is going to land him, but he's an option, but I think Georgia's fine where they are at tight end. I do think they need another running back. As we've seen this year, guys get beat up, guys get injured, and they've had to rely on a lot of freshman running backs. They only signed 1 in this last class, right? 3-star Bo Walker. So I do think, they have no problem looking in the portal for another running back. We talked about interior defensive linemen, so they've got some work to do. Now, as far as guys who could leave, I'm not saying these guys are. I'm saying they're just guys to keep an eye on. Possible guys are several guys in that 2023 class. This was their second year in Athens, and they haven't really played a ton. Of guys like Troy Bowles, a linebacker who's kind of buried on the depth chart behind C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, and those 2 freshmen. Sam Mpemba, a guy who has not played as much as Gabe Harris and Damon Wilson from that 23 class. I think he could see other opportunities and play at a lot of places at a high level, just not happening so much in Athens right now. Ja'Cory Thomas was in that class. He's not playing a ton. I think he played a significant amount later in the season. I think it was Dan Jackson or KJ Bolden went down. So we've seen him some, but he's a guy who I think could play a lot at most places. Chris Peel is a reserve defensive back who I think is I don't want to say in trouble for some playing time, but he's got guys right behind him who are going to be tough to keep off the field. Justin Rett's another defensive back, and Kyron Jones. A lot of out-of-state guys, right, who have no allegiance to Georgia, and if they're not playing at some point, you got to play, and it might mean playing somewhere else. So just a few guys to keep an eye on, but as far as the transfer portal goes, it's still open. I don't know if anything has happened so far. I hope nothing happens by the time I finish wrapping this up and the time I publish it. So if I didn't mention something that has happened, it's because it hasn't happened while I'm recording this video. So yeah, they've got some pieces they've got to add. It wouldn't surprise me if more guys left, but we'll see who else enters the portal, because I do think they would like to add some receivers, another running back, another quarterback as well, some defensive linemen, and maybe another edge rusher, maybe another defensive back or 2. But we'll see. But it takes a certain type of kid for Georgia to go get, and there's only resources for so many guys. So the big money kind of transfer kids looking for the biggest bag, probably not going to work out at Georgia. But at the same time, Georgia's used the transfer portal for depth, quality pieces who can help you out here and there. But they need to go get guys who can be game changers. But those guys are going to cost a lot of money. And if we're doing bidding wars for these transfer kids, Georgia's not going to win a lot of them. They'll win some, but it's the guys they really, really need, I think. But at the end of the day, it's crazy time in college football. So many guys leaving, so many guys returning. We're going to try to keep you updated on Dawg Post as it all happens. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you over on the website.